Hey guys, welcome to episode 138 of Overdose and Chill. We're streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you guys have any questions or anything you'd like us to address, please leave them in the comments and we are happy to jump in and answer. So, hi, I'm Farid. I'm the creative director for the Southeast Asia office. Here with me, we've got the legend, our CTO, co-founder Ryan. How are you, Ryan?
I'm good, thanks, bro.
Okay, cool. I got a thought. If we were to start a band, I've got a name for a band. It's gonna be called Crocs. And do you know why?
No, I don't like it immediately. Yeah, that's okay.
It's gonna call Crocs because it's gonna be conversion rate optimization equals to client success. But anyway,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
okay. So today we got a special topic for our beloved brands out there. Very very important subject because it involves people, user satisfaction, cool new tools out there, and the caching called the revenue, and that is CRO. So everybody might want to ask, what is CRO and why is it important? I'm going to let Ryan take over.
Yeah, thanks, mate. So I guess one of the things that we really want to touch on today, obviously around conversion rate optimization, is that we want to give you some clarity on what that actually means and the importance of that. With additional, if you kind of hang on to us for a little bit and kind of hear us out on what it is and that process, is that we do have a couple of brands that we're going to talk through. And those brands today is going to be Lululemon, obviously the athletic wear, very successful, and then also IKEA. Well, everyone knows IKEA. Two separate sites, two different types of audiences, but we're going to kind of identify what they're doing well and what, if we were to take on these clients, which they aren't one of our clients, we just think they're great experiences, what we'll do to sort of look at how we could improve their experience through conversion rate optimization. So first things first, I'm going to get through this pretty quickly. So in a nutshell, what conversion rate optimization is, otherwise known as CRO, it's an ongoing process where you continuously analyze, you continuously test and optimize that website experience. Now that's to maximize, obviously, conversion, revenue, but also one thing that a lot of people forget about is customer satisfaction as well. So I've got a slide here. You might be wondering, why is there an F1 slide in this deck? And it's pretty simple, really. I want to justify why conversion rate optimization is so important. So in the sort of analogy where you've got a brand new site and it's just launched, well, in that respect, that's kind of like a brand new F1 car, one that's been upgraded, one that's been improved. Now, what F1 does, and whether you watch it or not, it's pretty clear that what they end up doing week on, day on, day night, is essentially they're continuously monitoring how that car performs over that season time through specific testing, through analyzation, through how they respond in different types of temperatures and different types of weather behaviors. And that analogy is to help them improve their car throughout. Now, their key metric in racing terms is basically their conversion is to be number one, right? They want to be the fastest car on track. Now, if they weren't to optimize their car, what would happen despite being the fastest car on track in the first season or the first race? They will slowly start to go behind the grid over that course of time, right? Because all the other cars and all those other types of, players out there, they're continuously making improvements. So I wanted to use this type of analogy, not because I'm an avid Formula One fan, but it remains the same. Actually, in fact, a client of ours mentioned one that was actually quite meaningful is in a fashion brand. They're continuously trying new, cuts and fabrics and new ways of fashionable trends. That's kind of the same analogy, right? You're not just having the same cut that you had necessarily 10 years ago. Things start to change over that course of time as customers start to change too. Did you have any additional thoughts on that, Farid, that you wanted to raise?
Yeah, that is a definitely a good point because I think brands out there, some of the mistakes that they tend to overlook is once a site goes live and then just deliver it. So the idea of constantly improving is just not there. So this is the session, one of the reasons why we want to bring this up to you guys, and just to take note that user behavior, they evolve over time. Technology as well, they evolve over time. Hence, CRO is a definite must for everyone out there.
Yeah. And then I guess the same thing with the Formula One analogy, and I don't want to get technical here, but as you make sort of improvements to one thing, you may see that it might make a negative improvement elsewhere as well. So as an example, if you're talking about aerodynamics, making sure that the car breezes through wind very quickly, they may make a change to the structure of the car, but that change may impacts the way that car turns around corners as well. So that's how we do A/B testing and monitor all these things to ensure that we're looking at every single variable to see what impacts where.
Cool.
The other sort of, I guess, the misconception, it's not a misconception, I guess one of the core KPIs when we're looking at e-commerce in particular is that revenue is one of your key KPIs. Now, I want to make this really clear is that there's always revenue to be found online, always, right? And that's I guess, the key message and what today's subject's going to be is around where and how do you find that revenue? And that is through analyzation, that's through quantitative and qualitative data to understand your users, it's through testing to understand those metrics and where you should be, putting all your priority towards in terms of actions and those next steps. And then it's also the knowledge that you get from it to ensure that you're making very logical steps of what you should be applying and optimizing to your site. But there's one other part to it that as I guess a user experience expert, we always think about the customers first, right? And that's the one thing that I kind of really want to make crystal clear is that it should also be around customer satisfaction. It should be about on-site behavior. It should be about customer retention and all these different types of forms that we should be looking at and not just purely just revenue. Farid, anything you want to add?
That's great. I have nothing to add, actually.
Perfect. Great. So what is the process to CRO? It's pretty simple. I guess first it's alignment on what your goals are. What are the goals that you're trying to achieve? Right? You may have multiple goals. Typically, a lot of businesses have about 4 goals. And then doing that research and then the strategy, that design and development, running tests, analyze, and then rinse and repeat. Right. Now, there's one piece that is really important throughout this process is that user research. So doing things around user surveys, analyzing any inquiries that you get through your contact forums or any sort of customer reviews that you get on product reviews, is what I meant, is consolidating all that data, figuring out what the customers want from you. What are the things that actually motivates them to want to spend online? Review that information, reflect it on your site. Are you talking their same language? Is your information hierarchy the same as how they're talking? Right? Are they more caring about comfort when you're talking more about quality? All these things can make such a difference in how you actually make significant change throughout the on-site experience and to accelerate any sort of revenue growth as well. The other side of it.
So on that, do you have like a recommendation as soon as they go live? What's the soonest in regards to timeline when they already need to start to look into CRO optimization?
Yeah, no, it's actually a really good question because I guess like in our world of e-commerce is that, we design the experience of the site and that might have happened 6 months prior to it actually launching. Now, one of the key things is that, the digital landscape is evolving every day. Things change, new tech comes out. People's expectations for the brand may have changed to some extent. Is that even during that development phase is that you can still be collecting data on that existing site. You can be collecting survey data, continuously analyzing that. And then by the time you launch, you should have your data set up. So, or in GA4 terms, have basically all your event tags so you can analyze that behavior and figure out what is working, what isn't working, what needs to be amplified. The other side of it is ensuring that you got the heat maps and all those things set up, but you can start to immediately, as you're kind of analyzing that data from dev to launch and then analyze the point of difference between that launch site, is that you should be able to figure out what should I A/B test next? So a really good example of that might be search. We might be like, okay, we've implemented this really beautiful search that's working significantly well. We see that people that utilize search are 3 times more likely to convert online, but we might come to the conclusion that the search is not prominent enough. How can we make that search more obvious so we can increase the engagement of people that can utilize it, right? Because the conversion rate is so high for the people that utilize search. A/B test how we can apply that, get the results, figure out how that impacted that conversion rate, generate sort of estimated yearly revenue from that. So then you've got a really good, fair understanding on what that return on investment is on that one particular thing. I'll skip through these slides pretty quickly because we want to get to the more exciting stuff. But I guess one of the key questions that we get is, how do you know what is the most important thing? And I guess that's one of the challenging things that we face day on, day out. But we allow data to essentially make those decisions for us, right? So this thing is called basically a PI score. So PI being almost an acronym for potential, being P, importance being I, and E being ease. So as you're kind of creating these actionable steps, or whether it's a spreadsheet, however you prefer to do it, is that you should be looking at the potential. So scoring it out of 10, do we think that this is going to have huge amount of impact? Now that's still going to be a hypothesis, right? Everything's a bit of a hypothesis almost in whatever you do in life, to be fair. And then you then define that by the importance of the page. What is the volume of the page? How many people are landing on that page from organic search or external sources? Is it 30% of the traffic land on this page? Do we have marketing spend on this page? So then obviously the importance of that is pretty high because we want to increase that ROAS of that spend. And then equally, how easy is that to implement, right? A PI score should calculate that average and then start to define where you should be putting your focus towards. Now, it should be agile too. It should change. So as you're coming into Cyber Weekend sales or Boxing Day sales or single digit sale, you should be changing that priority, knowing that you're going to be spending a lot of money driving traffic to that site. Where should we be looking at to optimize that site for those particular sales to get the best return on investment throughout? The last point I want to raise before we get into the kind of fun stuff is just the importance of A/B testing. Now, not everything should be A/B tested, to be honest, right? And you shouldn't have too many A/B tests on at once. I want to make that crystal clear. Why? Is because one A/B test may be impacting the results of the other A/B test. Now, A/B testing should be, it should always have a goal, right? What are you actually trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve email signups? Are you trying to achieve engagement on search to help improve the conversion rate? It should have meaningful sort of metrics behind it to ensure that we can report on the success and that return on investment on that feature. Now, there is particular challenges at the moment with A/B testing. So one thing that you might be wondering is that Google Optimize is sunsetting. So Google Optimize is a free A/B testing tool. And I just wanted to make this clear and answer to any questions that people may be asking, is that tool is going to be gone at the end of September. So therefore, Google has said to use VWO or Optimizely as an alternative. Now, why I like A/B testing is because for us as, I guess, CRO experts or UX experts, is that it allows us to see the impact that we have on websites. We can see a revenue from simple changes. Now, in this particular example, what we're sort of testing is an incentive below the add to cart button. Now, this is an incentive that already exists. This is for a real life customer, which we've white labeled. This incentive exists in the footer, somewhere where people don't really get to see the incentive, or they're relied heavily on pop-ups. Now, positioning this incentive somewhere below the add to cart button where it actually matters, because that's where the purchase intent is, our goal was actually to increase the email acquisition. Why? Because their conversion rate on emails is significantly higher than most other channels out there. Right? We saw a huge uplift in email acquisition. We saw a huge uplift in conversion rate, and we also saw a huge uplift in average order value. Now, if we were to A/B test this further, we could test maybe different language to see if that works better. But we can also test the things around positioning. Maybe there is still a better position for it. And that's kind of the objective, is that continuously learning process and that knowledge that you receive from tests to ensure that you're getting the most optimal experience out there.
So having done a lot of this A/B testing, are you already creating a playbook where this is going to be best practice to have that user acquisition below the add to cart, and then so when we talk about other brands, we don't do this anymore. It's already part of our playbook.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the thing that we also need to understand is that not all clients are, it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's relatively bespoke. So a discount might be quite offensive to some customers for some brands as well. Very different. Some people may have different engagement in discounts versus maybe they just, they've got some other value proposition that encourages them to purchase more. So like reviews as an example, it might be the credibility around reviews that you should be pushing harder. Again, it depends on the goal. But I guess what I'm trying to also say is sometimes the smallest things that have the biggest impact. A lot of people and a lot of clients that we not necessarily a lot of clients, but I see this excitement around the newest and biggest and greatest tech, new pages and all these different things, which is awesome. And you can test the impact of that. But what I love about this is that you can have something that's very low effort that has huge amount of potential and impact, right? And then calculating sort of what that revenue gain is from it.
Oh, cool. We got a question here from Will. Hi, Ryan. What is the common/useful metrics for A/B test other than just revenue?
Yeah, again, it depends on the goal. So in this particular one was email signups, and we had particular rules that made sure that we were looking at the right customers. So if they happen to be logged in, that wasn't calculating that metric, all these different types of things. The other sort of KPI or metrics that we should be looking at outside of revenue here is how has this impacted new customers versus returning, right? Because we're trying to drive so much incentive to new customers. Are we offending the returning customers that's having a negative impact, right? The other one is also behavior, right? Is that making people abandoned? And then there's average order value and all sorts. So again, it kind of depends on the actual test itself.
We got another question from Darren. When doing A/B testing, how do you make sure that results are statistically significant?
Darren's coming in hot. Great question. Again, is luckily these tools give you a probability factor. It all depends on the volume of traffic. So if you happen to be quite a low volume session-based website, is that those tests may take a lot longer than a site that has significant amount of sessions. So it depends on the volume of the page that you're looking at. So if we don't see much traffic on that page, then there's probably no reason to A/B test, purely because it might take 3 months for you to get a result that's probable and significant enough that it's conclusive. The other side of it is essentially how much volume you can drive to it too.
Cool.
Now, I guess I'm going to hand over. You get all the fun stuff. So,
yeah. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna do a study of two brands. We're gonna study Lululemon and also IKEA. So I'm gonna cover Lululemon. So what you guys see over here, right? What we're gonna cover is this concept of customer-centric design. That is really important because ultimately, people who are going to your site, people are purchasing stuff from you, these are like real people, and the experience on the website needs to be customer-centric. It needs to resonate to the user. So point number one over here, what we're trying to explain over here, what Lululemon is doing really, really well, is the power of tone of voice and visual communication is key. So things like why you love this, right? Instead of our features, right? These are like communications or languages that resonates with the users. And things like, if you can see the product features below over there, designed for yoga, feels buttery soft, weightless, Nulu fabric. I don't know what's Nulu fabric, but it sounds really awesome. And things like your perfect fit, powerful flexibility, luxurious comfort, almost weightless. These are the kind of things that excites the users' interest, piques their interest, which makes them really interested in the product, informs them as well. And look at the visual communication that they're using, like the close-up product shots, how this product performs really well in certain poses. I'm not even sure if I can do that pose, but sounds like that's really awesome for yoga. Yeah, I don't know about you, Ryan. I don't know if you can do that pose. You reckon you can do that pose?
Oh no, I can barely bend my knees.
Yeah, so it's all about clarity and understanding, engaging the user, and it's sorts of a language of persuasion, and also it also encourages CTA encourages people to click because they're interested in this kind of things. So this is the power of tone of voice. Anything you want to add over here, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess for me, I don't know how Lululemon works, but I can imagine, because they've got feedback, they've always got these feedback pop-ups and stuff, is that they genuinely analyze the language that customers use and what are they talking about the product benefits to them. They've got this information hierarchy that they're talking about. Maybe it's always about the fit over the comfort, right? You see how the fit is the first one. The second thing might be the flexibility, but it's also just that brand consistency, I think, is really perfect. And then, these things, it's investments for a lot of brands, and people are like, that's going to cost a lot of money. But again, if you could report on, you could do a test on some products having this detailed level of content versus some that don't, and then you can kind of see sort of that impact of what this content has. Is that ROI quite high? Is it a customer's 3 times more likely to convert? And then equally, I think the video is key, right? So if I could just like digress to here for a second, is that I'm a big fan of video content, and we've seen video content really perform well from a conversion perspective. And my theory to that is, if an image says 1,000 words, then what does the video say? Right? There's just so much benefit to actually seeing the product move, seeing a bit of a brand experience as well, and that integrity to that. But one of the challenges I do think that Lulu has, that if I was to go into the account, this would be one of the first things I would test if the video engagement did help customers convert, of course, it's just that positioning. So like you see where I've got that heat map, Fred, which by the way is not a real heat map. I've just basically put a gradient over the mobile there. It's kind of how we see the scroll depth, where people are going scrolling down hot to cold. You typically see it start to go cold below that add to cart button. Now, if video is so powerful for them and it's helping customers convert, how many people are actually scrolling to that video in general, right? So this would be one of the things I'd probably try to optimize and test, is to see, okay, if we just put a simple play button there and then maybe we pop up the video and play the video there, does that help impact that sort of conversion overall too? What's your thoughts on that? Do you think you'd engage like that? Do you think that would help convert?
Yeah, so the thing is, we want to create better sessions, right? So this is all about that quality of sessions. Like better session means you have better user engagement. So the more informed they are about the product, the more likely they're gonna click that add to cart button. And you can't have that, right? And if you don't give them the best content, educate them as soon as possible. Hence, I guess, I get that decision where you want to include a play button, introduce that video earlier on in that PDP. But I'm just gonna roll back a bit in regards to content. Why brands should definitely invest in content, because the moment you invest in content, I know it's like a lot of hard work. A lot of brands that I've worked with, they have this struggle of creating good content because they don't have a dedicated content team. But the thing is, when you invest in content, right, you get what do you call it? better organic traffic, which means that content will serve you better on SEO, right? In return, you get organic traffic. That's like zero investment. And anyone from that organic traffic who clicks at that add to cart button and converts, that's like 100% conversion for you guys. So invest in content. That's my advice for all the brands out there.
I'm not going to say it's going to be 100% conversion. I think that's
okay. Sorry. Okay, I take that back. It's not 100%, but
that's
zero,
why I'm on this call.
Okay, but yes, that's why you are on this call. It's zero investment, but high returns. How about that?
Yeah. Oh,
we got a question
back
from
to the pie.
Back to the pie, yeah.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, so I guess for that particular actually, do we have to ask? Do you want to ask the question?
How do we evaluate the pie for different tone of voice or USPs to craft our CRO plan? Do we A/B test tone of voice?
Yes, well, you can. So one of the things that you probably do in Lululemon's case, it's quite difficult because what you would end up seeing a lot of companies do is that they would test it on their best-selling products and have a different sort of language and tweak up the language on their best-selling products. Now, that can be quite a skewed way to A/B test as well. And that's purely because the best-selling product is always going to sell. But the way I would kind of do that particular test for tone of voice would be around having the same best-selling products, but two variations of that best-selling product, because that's apples for apples type of testing. Now, with the pie scoring, immediately the effort is quite low because it's just language changing. If it's content creation, like being like videography and images, that could make that effort quite, quite difficult in general. I think the potential would be quite high, to be fair. If we could validate that through user research and through qualitative information. And then the impact would be probably extremely high because product pages are a large volume of traffic overall. So it's a bit of a calculation, and equally it's a bit of a hypothesis. Cool. All right. I think let's pass on to you, Fred. I think the other key thing to conversion rate optimization is also the consistency from channels to online to post transaction. It's that full experience, or whether that's in store. That consistency is key, right?
Yeah, this new term that gets thrown around a lot, customer experience, right? So what we want to do is, what we recommend is, you guys have a look at the Lululemon socials, right? From that social experience to the site, there's a consistency that's happening on their Instagram. And when the user clicks to that, brings them to the site, and you can see the same model from that socials to the site. That's consistent. Also, how they present the products, that's consistent with the model, right? And this is the type of things that we want to introduce to the whole customer experience. Why? Because if one experience break, then the whole experience break. We don't want something that is disconnect from your social experience to your site. That's something that's not going to be great for the whole customer experience. Anything you want to add, Ryan?
I guess it's just clarifying that CRO is a blended service, right? Like, it's not necessarily a service, but a process. And the fact that we should be looking at that marketing, how's that marketing pushed to online? How's that online pushed back to marketing? How's that online pushed to transactions? All right, it's kind of looking at that full sort of 360 view of the customer, right? And I really mean that, because at the end of the day, that's still conversion for us. Whether the conversion is pushing people in store, which then they decide to buy online, those are all things that should be dictated by the business goals, the user goals, etc. So there's so many areas to it that touches it, but it's ensuring that we are prioritizing and looking at what's going to potentially move the needle further, if that is our objective, is to move the needle further. Cool.
Yeah, so the next point is user empowerment. So you guys have a look at this. What Lululemon does really well is they relate to everyone across all walks of life, right? So you have that model. Natalie is 5'9" and wears a size 6. Then you can actually change the model to somebody who you actually relate to, right? You can see that screenshot on the right. That's Natalie 5'9", Aliyah 5'9", and then Sarah is 5'7" and wears a size 16, right? So This is where you can actually introduce personalization. This is where actually you can actually relate to the users. So for example, if I'm a user and I'm Sarah 5'7" and wear a size 16, I select that, and somehow you introduce me a category page, which readily shows me products that is all a size 16. Now that's personalization. That's you talking to your users. That's a customized experience, and also that's personalization. Hence, you get a happy user, and then you actually assist them to actually go to the add to cart button quicker and faster, and in return you get conversion.
Yeah, I guess for me on this one is just the empowerment that it has for customers. That, you know, in the traditional world as a brand, you know, you'd see, and I don't want to say any brand names, but you typically see them in this really athletic, you know, model. And that's not the truth, right? Like these guys, I think the brand integrity and the brand experience and who they're trying to be comes across a lot in here. And I think that makes a real difference in an online experience, is showcasing, you know, plus size models, right? Because they will have plus size models. They'll know that from data, and encouraging them, right? They're not trying to hide the fact, you know, we're not trying to say that you should be the size to wear our product. You can be any size. You can be who you want to be as a customer. And I appreciate that as a brand significantly. The other side of it, I kind of just wanted to raise is not only is it a good feature, again, you can measure, it's a massive investment because it's multiple models. You know, how do you do that with so many products? You can invest, you can still measure the success of what this looks like. Or ultimately, you can also push that change model higher. But if you wanted to take it to the next level, which I wanted to talk about, was personalization. Now, Lululemon doesn't currently have this, and because they don't have plus size model for all their clothes, which is potentially understandable. But say if I did happen to click on Sarah, who is the 5'7" size 16, is what I would like to see from there is when I get to the collection page, I would like to see Sarah or a model within a similar size range on that collection page, because suddenly it probably understands that I'm that size. I want to see a model at that size. It makes my browsing experience feel tailored to me as a size 16 female, to, you know, to help amplify that, and then also being able to cache that and for future sessions and all sorts of things. That to me would be the ultimate experience.
Cool.
I guess this kind of goes back to your point around content is king.
Yeah. So yeah, that word is like getting thrown around a lot. Content is king. So over here experience is more than just your UX product or stories, right? So it also empowers the user, helps them improve their well-being, and I guess it says a lot about Lululemon as a brand, right? They're just not interested in you as a person who converts, but they are interested in you on what goes on after, right? So you can see over here what they have is they actually have tailored programs or yoga sessions for persons who are actually interested in buying product that is related to yoga, right? And then they introduce, for example, video in regards to yoga or articles about yoga. And you can see that screenshot just below over there on the left. They've got discover online yoga classes. So this is taking a step further, post-purchase experience that's really great for user experience as a whole. Anything you want to add, Brian?
Again, it's just the brand integrity. And that's what I love about Lululemon. It's that encouragement to get people to go out and, you know, you don't have to be wearing Lululemon to enjoy this content still. I could do it in my
That's
Nike.
true. Yeah.
Right? And that's what them as a brand. But I'm coming back to the point is from an experiential perspective, outside of just UX and outside of product, it's just that something else that makes them extremely special, right? Where they do online classes, where they've got so many different elements to it. And yeah, I genuinely think that these guys are some of the best out there. And I just wanted to rephrase it. And hence the reason why we're analyzing it is it's key. And like, how many times have you, from a, I guess, organic search perspective, like how many times do you search up a 20-minute ab workout, Fred?
Every day. I work out every day.
Yeah. You're probably increasing the search volume quite significantly.
Yeah,
I think we've got some questions in here, Fred, that we probably should answer. Do you want to answer any of them?
We got one from Sarah. The ability for video content to bring information to users is truly impressive, but it also is known to impact website performance. How do you balance the two requirements?
Are you throwing that off to me, eh?
We're gonna do a scissors, paper, stone. Rock, paper, scissors. Who's gonna answer this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you go. I'll add on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it is definitely a balance for sure, but I think we also have to remember that we have to optimize those videos. All right, so from an SEO perspective, it does actually have an impact. If you got the video at the top, you know, when Google's crawling through that and the SRI scores and all these things, it does actually have an impact. But it is one of those things that we kind of have to figure out if we can test and see the data of how much of a conversion perspective videos have, and then we dictate that by how much of an impact that's having from an organic or performance perspective, is that we can kind of decide what's the most important feature to it. But ultimately, there's, you know, even from a performance perspective, there might be other areas of the site that you can fix in terms of performance. So then you can maintain video content on there. Again, it's one of those things that it's a continuous optimization throughout, whether it's performance, experience, etc. Testing what works, testing where to get the best engagement overall.
Yeah, I just want to add, I don't think we got what's the best tool for A/B testing. But before we answer this, just one thing I want to add also. Gone are the days where, you know, platforms, SaaS platforms, or all of those platforms, they actually allow you to upload videos up to the platforms. Because nowadays we just do embeds and we do streams. Not saying that it's not going to cause issues, because yeah, it does cause some issues. But the thing is, the big problem of uploading a huge content into a platform, those are just overcome by this simple embedding process and streaming videos. So we go to the next question, which is, what's the best tool for A/B testing nowadays?
It really depends on what you want to do. Like, I'm a fan of Google Optimize. It does enough. It does everything that you need to do, and it's free. But obviously, that's kind of out of the picture. Probably the next, and I don't want to put myself in any sort of hiccups here, but one I do really like is VWO. I think the usability of it is actually quite simple. They do some great things where you can measure sort of metrics through goals. You've got heat mapping, you've got all these other sort of tool sets to it, but it's defined by your budget, how much you want to spend for licenses, and what you're really trying to achieve at the end of the day.
Yeah, I've got another follow-up question actually. What's the recommended prerequisite where I should start looking into A/B testing? Is it, you know, is it my conversion rate, my bounce rate, or is it my session traffic? What is it?
Typically around your session traffic, right? So you kind of want to be, sitting around like the 200,000 plus sessions a month, in my perspective, right? That's very subjective, and the only reason for that is because you kind of have significant amount of traffic to get a conclusion quicker for tests. All right. And then ultimately as well, if you're not making much revenue online, you don't have much session behavior, is the cost of those tools, even though it does get cheaper the less traffic you have, that return on investment might be a bit more tricky. You know, that's when I like to move things into the just do it bucket. You know how you asked me before, like, you've done so many tests, how do you know that that's just always going to work? Yeah. It's us learning those behaviors and what works, and then we define those in the just do it, the old Nike tick.
Yeah, agree. One more question from Kwan. How do you choose the right key metrics to measure during an A/B testing?
All around the goal. What are you trying to achieve? You implement this. Your hypothesis is this. Therefore, my key metrics should be this. In simple terms. Cool. We've got about 18 minutes, so let's chew through some of this one. I guess just for this one here it's quite interesting because Lululemon, unfortunately the GIFs aren't working in these slides, but they've kind of got this engagement where on the US version is that you click on Lululemon and then that expands into a little submenu like bestsellers and all these different types of categorization. Now, for me, in terms of best practice, I don't think Lululemon with a little drop down is the best approach. It doesn't sound like an actionable step for users to take. It kind of just looks like a banner. And I bet you that engagement is probably not that great. But it's quite interesting because you reflect that on the other sites, like the other region countries, and they have something more similar where, funny enough, I actually mocked this up because I thought they didn't have it, but they do, is that they've kind of got the women's leggings, the women's shoes. Now, that should be personalized, right? So if you happen to be a returning customer, is that then we can then surface those categories to streamline their purchase? Because from our experience, Farid, we know that it takes multiple sessions for a customer to actually transact.
Yeah.
My other point to it is, I got two more points, is it's quite interesting that the US have followed this approach, because the way that the US may be, the way that US may use the homepage may be very different to someone like in Asia or ANZ. And then the last one I wanted to raise was changing your banners. So if I happen to be looking at yoga products, you come back to the homepage, and additionally, even if you happen to be plus size, as per our discussion before, how powerful it is to actually change that homepage banners to make it feel a little bit more aligned with your behavior beforehand.
Yeah, so this is where like personalization is like really powerful. It's like that what you as a brand, you're actually talking to a person, like that one person. So they feel valued, right? They feel that you know me, and then in return, I'm really happy to convert with you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Guess the last point,
Last point.
Lululemon says, listen to your customers. They've got sweat the details. They're actively pushing for survey information. And I guess to what we kind of discovered is I believe that they are truly listening to their customers and making decisions based off the research they get.
Yeah, I wanna point out the tone of voice as well. Again, the tone of voice. We are listening. We love to sweat the details. That's like really powerful.
Yeah, 100%. The brand is just phenomenal.
Cool.
All right, the big players.
Woohoo, IKEA.
I might quickly touch on this one because I think this was a question that was going to be raised. But IKEA, no-brainers, everyone knows who they are. Now, IKEA, we've specifically started to talk about some of the innovation that they've applied on their site. So they've got these 3D model spins, and they invest a lot in content. Now, the kind of point that I want to raise is again around the return on investment from this content. And that's kind of where we look at data, or where you should look at data, in fact, on what's that engagement, right? The people that engaged into these 3D models, spun the chairs, the tables, whatever it is, did that give them a 6 times chance more to convert online? And I can, as a guess, I would say it probably definitely does. Right. But ultimately, then you can see what was the cost of the cost of those renders as well. And then you can identify sort of if it's like a 4 times ROI or a 10 times or 20 times, right? That's what kind of decides the decision whether you should do that for all products too. Now, I guess with AI tools and all sorts of things, it's probably going to become a lot easier for us to achieve these things. But it is, again, ensuring that you are looking at the return on investment as a metric to determine how much that impacts conversion, and then determine whether you should be investing in content because it works. And then I guess like augmented reality really quickly, Fred, like IKEA doesn't have it. Do you reckon that's for a reason? Do you think it not works? Well, I couldn't find it anyways.
From what I've researched, they've got an app that does. It's just purely, it's called IKEA Drop if I'm not wrong, but it's only, I think that's testing out only purely in Sweden. It's an IKEA Drop. So you install that app. That app is purely just for AI, just to make sure that you as a person who purchased the product can actually fit everything through the door into your room, and the last mile is not a problem, and it fits properly into your room. But you don't have it on the site, and they just don't know why yet.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a friction point. right?
Yeah, could be.
I think augmented reality is. I personally think it's awesome. Still, like, there's some cool tech out there. For a furniture company, I see so much power in it. I love the fact that you can get it to the scale, right? The sense of scale in your home is so important. Like even myself, like I bought some furniture, and I've had those concerns. Is it going to fit well in the space? Is it going to look well? And it kind of eliminates a lot of that anxiety if you were to purchase online.
Yeah. One more thing I noticed is actually with Adidas as well. And again, they do AR just on the app as well. So it just feels like there's that performance issue. So Adidas is doing, you can actually AR and actually test the size of the shoe fit, right? But they're just doing it through the app. You can't find that capability on the site as well.
Yeah, I think the shoes, you need an app at the moment. I don't think there's a tech for it. But with furniture, there definitely is. There's some cool stuff that you can do, like turn on lamps and all sorts of things as well.
Cool.
Anyways, we digress. This is, I think this is a really cool piece of kit.
Yeah, the video search. And I think that this is like really smart because what I tried is, if you guys can see my sofa over there, I've got a sofa over there. So what I did was I took a photo of that sofa, and it somehow recognizes my sofa, and on top of that, it actually recognizes my bookshelves. And then the search result is actually based on sofas and bookshelves as well. It's like really powerful tool. Yeah, it's some level of personalization as well.
Yeah, for me, search is always such an important feature in e-commerce. But what I love about it is one of the challenges is what inspires customers to purchase furniture. Are they going on Pinterest? Right, there's a lot of inspiration, interior design there. Are they going to a restaurant and just fall in love with a piece of furniture? Are they going to a friend's house? Are they on a magazine? Right now, if you see a piece of furniture, right, say your couch, how would you describe your couch in your office right now in keywords if you were to search it in keywords?
All vintage, slightly sourish smell, cheap.
See, I guess that's the key point that I'm trying to raise is that tech like this, if you were to put that in keywords, the chances that you're going to get a zero result page is probably pretty high because you end up being too specific for the logic. Yes, there's a lot of AI search tools out there that's crazy powerful, but the ability to actually be able to take a photo, upload a screenshot from Pinterest, power to them. And I think in IKEA, it's really important for them purely because of their price point of their products. They've still got their products that can look as premium as some of the best high-end products out there. They'll probably have a version of it at a fraction of the price.
Yeah. And it also helps with people who are not able to actually verbalize what they have in mind or what they see. So this tool is really powerful.
Yeah. What about the compare products? I find that the toggle super strange.
Yeah, that is really strange.
Do you want to explain that to you guys?
Yeah, so I think what IKEA is focusing on right now is actually the product details, right? So they want to focus on the product details, and if you guys can see the product card, there's a lot to communicate in there, right? So only when a person is interested in, like, for example, I'm already interested, I've read my product details, I'm already interested in, for example, 2 products, but what's great about the other? And then that small toggle button that's comparing the details, I just activate that, introduce an additional functionality. I guess what they don't want to do is they do not want to overload the users on the first go. They want users to actually understand the product first. And then after that, they are interested, they have picked their interest, they can actually compare the products.
Yeah. See, for me, I was always wondering to see if they actually tested this because I swear they used to have the compare tick on all the products back in the day, right? Because I'm always constantly looking at these sites and seeing how they evolve over time. I'm just fundamentally interested because I think compare function is super powerful from an educational perspective. But it's just such a bizarre experience. It just seems so off. But there is also too much visual stuff going on in those
Yeah.
profiles that it could
Yeah.
actually have an impact.
Yeah.
I guess the other part of it is that, like, say that compare similar products on the right-hand side, they could put something like that in their product page, right? And use the format that's the good, the better, the best. Now, why I like that type of thing, not only is it educational if they've got the right content to talk about, right, the right attributes to ensure it gives it value, but additionally, what I like about it is that it validates the price point. So if you put your current product as the good, right? It goes, okay, sweet. What is the better version, the more expensive version, and why is that more expensive? Could that sell me to some degree, or does that help provide me value on the product that I'm currently looking at, right? And then that right-hand side, it gives you the best. Right? I think that in itself is such a nice educational hybrid to actually upselling as well.
Yeah. Good race.
Thanks, mate. Cool. Now we talked about like what would we A/B test on IKEA, and I think it's that default image on the product page. So it's very like IKEA is very plain, and it kind of intentionally is to some extent. Now their stores aren't that plain though, really, right? It's all formulated into rooms and it's very well curated and whatnot. This would be something I'd 100% A/B test. Is currently what you see is a studio shot of the product. I would A/B test that against a lifestyle shot. Very simple test, not that difficult at all, right? Now, why would I do that? It's because it's motivational, right? You can kind of see it in a room and inspire to it, and more of a desire to want to purchase it, right? The white background does not really do that, even though it does give you clarity on what the product is. That is the challenge. And then also it is that sense of scale, right? The white version, you don't actually know how big that is in reality.
Yeah.
You put it on a rug, you put a coffee table in front of it, it kind of gives you an idea and a cushion.
Great chance to upsell and cross-sell as well.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. You could actually put little other products in this image, sort of like little tags that you can trigger, and then it will.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
100%. Good raids, mate. You got the good raids that time.
Cool.
Well, this slide, because the GIFs aren't working, is relatively redundant now. But in a nutshell, there's also just standardized behavior updates on mobile too. So the one on the right-hand side was actually where the header would reappear if you scroll slightly upwards. Currently, if you scroll all the way down, for you to actually reach the header, you have to scroll all the way back to the top.
Yeah.
So it's that nice little interaction where you can make the header pop up as soon as you scroll slightly upwards, because the customer's intent is probably to go back to the header, is a guess. Yeah. But from even a testing perspective, that we can analyze that behavior and see how that impacts the key metrics that we should be looking at. What's your thoughts on having being able to change the grid from a 2-column to a 1-column for furniture, that is?
Okay, I honestly don't see a lot of people are doing that as a brand, but I can see the value in that, right? You are actually giving more retail space. But the downside is when you want to talk about PLP or what you guys see over here, the category pages, this is where people compare products. So having this ability of changing that would be really great. Okay, I want to compare this product and this product. I want to look at a 2x2 or 4x4 grid. Okay, now I'm just looking at what's really nice out in here. So I just want to view like a 1 grid column. So it depends on the user experience, and I think it's a nice to have, right? It's you're actually answering to a couple of user needs on multiple user needs, and it's just a nice to have for me.
Yeah.
We got a question from Will. Does this example bracket IKEA needs testing? It just makes sense when you think about it. I guess the question is how to decide when a test is required. That's a good question. How to decide when a test is required?
See, I actually probably wouldn't test that. to be honest.
Mm.
Why I wouldn't test that is because the way that we could do that in analytics is set up an event tag, right? And then we can segment those event tags, the people that look at 1 column and 2 column, and we'll be able to identify the people that actually engage more significantly, like what significant impact that's going to have, whether that's conversion rate, bounce rates, etc. Right? So you could probably get that level of information prior to A/B testing, and that's just purely just so then we can kind of get it up and running, right? If we think there's going to be significant risk involved in that hypothesis, right, where we think it may really impact it from a negative perspective, that's when A/B testing also becomes really valuable. So I guess the only other thing to this is performance is also an issue here, right? You've got 2 different grids, you got more, basically more script on the site. Again, it's the biggest challenge that we have is identifying all those different variables and seeing whether conversion is worth it. Cool. Because we're about to wrap up anyways, I think what I will do, it's the final slide. It's basically the key takeaways is the CRO is an ongoing process. It doesn't stop, right? It's just like that racing car analysis is that if you stop, you end up behind in the grid, right? You'll become last place eventually. The power of CRO is the discovery and the learnings to accelerate growth. So what I mean by that is as you do tests and you get the reports back from them, evaluate them, right? Research them in depth. What are the things that we could maybe make little changes to make bigger impact from those tests? We can test again, right? Until we get to something a little bit more conclusive. Listen to your customers, do customer surveys, do user research and reflect on what they're saying. So similar to Lululemon, it's ensuring that you are collecting qualitative data because it's very important and analyzing that data to figure out what changes, even content-wise, hierarchy-wise. There's a lot of good, valuable feedback from it that can help, I guess, give you ammo to understand what is more important to customers, right? And with that in mind is that you should align with business and user goals. A/B test where applicable, investigate, learn, test again, which is basically what I said. A/B test to understand the ROI, to know where to invest. So you can always do trials on more expensive things, whether that's content like video content, and A/B test apples for apples to see whether that investment in that content is actually worthwhile. Right? Simple changes can make significant impact. We don't always have to be looking at the cool tech like IKEA. We can make simple changes that really help the needle move. We start to apply 10 simple changes to that, 10 really impactful things, and that makes a real difference. And then the last point, it's not always about revenue. I know that's a key metric for a lot of businesses, but always consider that customer satisfaction as well. Anything else you want to close off with, like maybe a freestyle rap or anything like that?
No, but yeah, before we wrap up, I hope brands out there understand that, for me, that point number 1 is really important. I hope all the brands out there consider this. It's an ongoing process. Doesn't stop, cannot stop. Brings me to the point that we raised earlier. User behavior, they evolve over time. Technology, they evolve over time. The landscape of things, like a few years ago we had COVID, and then e-commerce experience went just spiked up, and then nowadays it's like everybody's free to go out again. So how do you guys actually win those people back, and then have a consistent offline and online experience? And can't do this without CRO, please.
Yeah, I think that's actually really valid. It's that market research too, right? Actually understanding what's happening out in this economy as well, and then aligning that and being agile with it too. But yeah, I guess you can wrap up with your freestyle rap. And
all right, please check out our band Crocs CRO and equates to client success. Thank you for tuning in for our Overdose and Chill episode 138. I see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.